AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint, the most important people from the vendors. How are they feeling in terms of where we are right now globally?
CTIA holds this event every year for the past 3 years to talk about 5G, and a big theme was beating China. So they're using the Chinese Boogeyman to further their policy goals.
You were at the CTIA 5G Summit. What is that event and who was there?
It's a veritable who's who of people in the wireless industry. That's who is there.
There is a massive 5G wave which is arriving in China, and we will have a major issue if we don't act quickly in order to maintain and preserve our leadership.
This race has barely begun. The Chinese machine has incredible momentum. They may be slow getting out of the blocks, but they are going to run a very, very fast race.
Why is it put together like that they're putting in the context of a race?
So their argument is that if regulations here in the U.S. inhibit the build-out of a 5G network here in the U.S., then we won't have any 5G here, right? Or we'll have a very small amount. Meantime, in China, they'll build out these huge 5G networks and everything will be great. And so if any company wants to develop a new 5G service, they'll go and do it in China. And they'll invest all their resources in China, and all the learnings that they get will be based in China.
So this is about keeping the sort of economic power balance shifted towards the U.S. when you're talking about these big multinational tech companies. At the same time, the government doesn't want to be the ones in charge of the 5G networks. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Several sort of prominent speakers, came out like strongly against the idea of any kind of government-led, nationalized 5G network here in the U.S.
And I think it shows that we should stay on the free enterprise track. I don't want the government to run this. I mean, the government will be engaged. We have a national security piece that will be engaged. But on the whole, we're issuing it to private companies, and they will do the build-out. And seems to me it's working just fine.
Where are we in terms of the 5G capabilities of the U.S.? Are we slipping behind, and what's the vendor outlook for that?
Yeah, the timing was really interesting because literally in the past week we've had dueling announcements from the mobile operators in South Korea and then Verizon here in the U.S. about who was first to 5G, because the South Korean carriers launched and Verizon launched, and they were literally within hours of each other.
Yesterday, unless you were living under a rock and you missed it, we launched the world's first 5G commercial mobility network.
China Mobile turned on a huge test network in China, in one of the cities in China, also this week. So like, there's a lot of sort of dueling, who's first in 5G. And the message was that the race has started. I mean, we do have commercial launches. We have commercial launches here in the U.S. We've got commercial launches in other countries. And so now it's like, the race has started, but it's a long race, essentially. And so the vendors like Nokia and Ericsson talked about, and Intel talked a lot about what 5G would be used for, not necessarily this year, more like next year and in 5 years. And a big message was that, the consumer side of the business is not the real opportunity. The real opportunity is the enterprise side. What can you use 5G for in precision manufacturing and in agriculture, in healthcare, in all these different markets? And so that was the real message from the vendors, was like, don't be... don't pay much attention to this consumer story. It's important, but it's not the real 5G opportunity.
Next up for you, what do you have going on in the next couple of weeks as it relates to your 5G coverage?
Oh yeah, it's all 5G all the time. So next week, the CCA, the Competitive Carriers Association, is holding their spring show. And I'll be going to that, and that's basically everyone who's not AT&T and Verizon are going to get together in Denver and talk about kind of what the situation looks like. And we're scheduled to get an update from Dish Network's Charlie Ergen about what Dish Network is doing in 5G. So that's on tap for next week, and then later next week, I'm headed to Chicago to check out Verizon's 5G network there. So we'll see how that goes.
Awesome. Well, it all sounds great, Mike. Safe travels, and we'll speak to you next week.
All right, thanks.